The bystander effect. A psychological phenomenon in which more people there are observing an event where someone is in need, the less likely it is for any of them to do anything to help. The idea is that responsibility to help is somehow diffused among the people observing the event. As upsetting as that sounds, sometimes this happens to avoid escalating a situation or to avoid harm to oneself, and other times it's the result of apathy and carelessness. The bystander effect is still being studied, but gathering data for this particular theory has never been easier thanks to social media. We have several clips that illustrate the bystander effect to share with you today. June 2021. In this chilling clip, security cam footage of a gas station. In it, a woman runs out of the store and up to a man standing next to his truck as he fills up the tank. The footage doesn't have any audio, but witnesses say that the woman was yelling and screaming for help. A man follows her close behind. What happens next is a stomach-turning example of the bystander effect in action. The woman pleads with the man by the truck, who appears to not move an inch. The man following her catches up, and she quickly throws herself to the ground. And then, right in front of the man filling up gas, as well as at least 3 other people standing by their cars, the pursuer lifts the woman up off the ground, throws her over his shoulder, and walks back into the store as the woman struggles to break free. No one who witnessed the event made any kind of attempt to help. In this instance where the person in need directly approaches someone who doesn't help, it's much more disheartening. But as the bystander, someone who doesn't know the whole situation, it was likely difficult to make the decision to intervene in the moment, or perhaps they were frozen with anxiety. As it turns out, the man chasing her was her former boyfriend, and the situation was resolved shortly after. She's safe. July 2018. In this next clip, we see from the perspective of a security camera at a relatively busy cafe in Paris. The short clip shows student Marie Leglaire crossing the street and crossing paths with a man walking in the opposite direction. As their paths cross, their heads turn to look at each other, but they keep moving in their respective directions. And then the man stops. He changes direction and walks towards Marie, who is just out of the camera's sight at this point. The man seems angry, and he's pointing an accusatory finger at her. And then, just as Marie enters the camera's line of sight, we witness her head snap to the side, clearly taking a blow to the face. The patrons of the cafe are shocked. One man stands up and grabs a chair with seemingly violent intentions, but does nothing other than exchange a few words with the assailant as he walks away. The footage has no audio, but a description of the event describes the man made sexually explicit remarks towards Marie, and she replied with a comment that he apparently did not like. After Marie's assault, a total of 6 people stand up, and 5 more towards the attacker, but nothing is ultimately done. Even worse, the rest of the cafe patrons never get up from their seats, and the 2 women closest to the camera appear to try to go back to their own conversation shortly after. It's likely that because this event happened so quickly that many of them were in shock. Plus, attacking the man after the fact would likely be seen as assault, as he was already walking away from the scene. Marie is okay, but she also reports that this kind of thing happens every day, everywhere. January 2020. Bloomingdale's prices can be outrageous, but no one is more outraged than Justin Gilberti. At a Bloomingdale's in Connecticut, Gilberti waltzed in around 6:45 p.m. and just started smashing everything he could get his hands on in the Sono collection within the department store. This short clip shows only a fraction of the rampage, but he also apparently punched a guard who confronted him, withstood being pepper sprayed, and went on causing destruction until several officers ganged up on him to restrain him. You can briefly see several people rushing to get out of the store at the beginning of this footage, which was also taken by somebody brave enough to document the event, but not brave enough to step in and stop him. In this case, the bystander effect occurring most likely has something to do with the man being visibly agitated and violent. Intervening would have been more likely to cause harm to the person stepping in than doing any good. Plus, after the first cop got punched, it's not likely a civilian would approach Gilberti unprompted. A security guard and one other person received minor injuries. February 2015. This next clip comes from Beijing. In it, a 54-year-old man appears to be unsteady on his feet, and then he collapses to the ground. It's not clear how much time passes in the minute-long clip, but a total of 23 bystanders walk by or over the man while he lies unconscious on the cold pavement. Eventually, a Good Samaritan arrives in the form of an older woman. She tries to make contact with the man, but goes inside the nearby building for help when he doesn't respond. And then something horrifying happens. The man is passed out right in front of a prime parking space, and the next person who drives into the lot wants it. We see the car drive up to the man, stop as the person driving realizes they've hit something, and then, horrifyingly, they accelerate over the man and pull into the space. The woman returns with help, but it's too late. The man wasn't able to survive his injuries, and he passed away after reaching a hospital. All of this could have been avoided if any of those 23 bystanders had taken time to help the man. Each of them likely thought that the parking lot was busy enough that someone would come along to help him. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. In this YouTube short, we see a relatively young, healthy man lifting weights in a busy gym. As he completes one repetition of a deadlift, he suddenly drops the barbell, seems to be confused, and then passes out. When his body hits the padded floor of the gym, you can see a gym goer in the back turn around to trace the sudden noise, but then go back to their own business. Thankfully, the man doesn't stay down for long. As he gets back up, you can hear a woman asking him if he's okay, but she didn't make any attempt to help him when he first fell. There are a few things happening in this clip. First, this does happen inside a gym, where someone passing out from doing more than they can handle is probably not an uncommon occurrence. Secondly, the man who turns to look is wearing a face mask, so there is also a likely fear of getting sick by coming into contact with a stranger. Whatever the case was, there certainly were plenty of bystanders who could have helped the man. October 2016. This clip shows what some might even consider a cruel case of the bystander effect. In it, we see a short segment of a Facebook live stream in which the user Cortland Garner captured an elderly couple who appeared to be extremely intoxicated. The man is bent backwards over a bench, and the woman is on her hands and knees on the sidewalk, clearly in distress. After paramedics arrived and tended to the couple, they told the police that they had snorted some heroin in the bathroom of a Walgreens. There were a handful of people at the scene of this bizarre event, but they were going about their business, and they weren't calling for help. They were standing there, gawking at the couple. It's sad, and it really is their own fault. But the bystander effect doesn't account for social media brownie points that can be received by live streaming people in distress. June 2023. In this next clip, the bystander effect is completely understandable. This security cam footage shows a bulletproof vest-wearing officer walking out of a 7-Eleven towards a Brinks armored truck. Then, an SUV pulls up in front of the secured vehicle, and men in white jumpsuits exit. They're wielding rifles, and they force the agent to the floor before filling 2 duffel bags with more than $15,000 and skirting out of the parking lot. This particular scene happens outside of a busy 7-Eleven, but it also happens so quickly that it would have been easy to miss. It's also likely that if anybody had stepped in to intervene, it would have only escalated the situation due to the men being well armed. Thankfully, nobody was hurt. October 2019. This CCTV footage from a metro station in Buenos Aires shows another perfectly logical instance of the bystander effect. We see a busy platform with passengers lined up to board. Then, a man leaning on a wall passes out and falls forward, pushing a woman who was walking by over and causing her to fall onto the tracks. Initially, she doesn't appear to be moving, but there's another problem. The train is approaching. Rather than jump onto the tracks to try to pull her up in time, everyone on the platform waves their hands at the conductor, signaling him to stop the train. Thankfully, their efforts cause the train to stop just in time, and the woman is saved. Once the coast is clear, 2 people jump down to help the woman get back up. The collective decision to stop the train rather than risk their own lives to pull a woman off the tracks was wise, and it probably saved more than one life in that instance. The bystander effect is usually an upsetting event as you've seen so far in this video, so it's nice to see it instead be a cause of intelligent decision-making. July 2022. This smartphone footage shows us an incident where a disgruntled man has melted down inside a grocery store. The person recording the footage follows the man through the store as he rips merchandise from the shelves, yells, and destroys just about anything he comes across. He's yelling nonsense and appears to be on drugs.
I gotta go out!
Don't come back in.
I gotta go out!
Don't come back here. And you leave the parking lot. I don't want you in this parking lot either. I know what you do.
It's enough up to you now!
You need to leave the store now.
Give me! Just with your finger, like princess. Right! Give your chest! You're enough food for all the world! Crazy!
He almost hit you with that. And now he's running. You know, somebody's got to clean that up. Do you think about those people?
You are police clean and you have work!
Oh, the police are coming.
You have police clean and you have work!
They're going to drag you away in handcuffs.
Look!
Enough! What is wrong with you?
The situation is clearly stressful as the recording gets increasingly shaky. The bystander effect is out in full force on this clip, because if there's anybody else in the store besides the two associates trying to get him to leave, they are completely avoiding the situation. That's a wise course of action since a man on drugs is very unpredictable. The man exits the store at the end of the footage, and it appears no one was harmed. Except for those melons he smashed, those things are done. November 2017. This smartphone footage from Facebook user Wisely Wu shows an incident on a Bay Area rapid transit train in California. A man is seen swearing at and threatening someone just out of frame. As he approaches, the camera turns to show that the target of the abuse is an Asian man.
Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't, sit down. Don't do it. Don't do it.
He's drunk, man. He's not even working. Put you. I'll put him on. Fuck. Chinese. I don't like you. I don't like you.
Nobody on this train likes you, sir.
Put you. I'm trying.
When the tirade first starts, the man is surrounded by other passengers. But as the angry, clearly unstable man gets closer and more violent, those passengers quickly disappear and leave the man to fend for himself. Classic bystander effect. The abuser continues to hurl racial slurs and eventually strikes at the man, who tries to remain calm until he is hit a second time. At that point, things escalate, and it seems like the attacker is about to get a taste of his own medicine. But then, a woman approaches from the other side of the train to stop things from escalating further, and the Asian man is urged by other passengers to not hit his attacker. Nobody directly stepped in to help besides the woman, and thank goodness she did. Otherwise, the racist would have probably received the beatdown of his life, and the Asian man would have ended up in jail. August 2023. This next clip comes to us from New York. In it, two black teen girls can be seen harassing an Asian woman named Sue Young and her family, including her two young daughters. Speaking to CBS New York after the event, Sue describes having her hair pulled and being beaten by the teens. According to reports, the two girls went on a racist tirade targeted at Sue and her family, and then went to beat up another Asian woman who was recording them on the other side of the train. When Sue stepped in to help the woman, she also received a beating. As you can see in the footage, the train is full of other people who could have done something and chose not to. New Yorkers tend to mind their own business, but the bystander effect is sad to see, especially when racism is involved. The NYPD has since arrested the 16-year-old girl and charged her with 2 counts of assault. The 2 women who were assaulted are okay. May 2023. Subway is known for their sandwiches, not for their security. Even so, when local nurse Halima Othman was followed into a Subway store and threatened by a homeless man, the very least the Subway employees could have done was call the police. Unfortunately for Halima, they couldn't even be bothered to stop making sandwiches. As she was cornered and berated, Halima begged and pleaded with the staff of the establishment for help. As you can see in the security footage, they largely ignored the situation and continued to go about their business as if someone wasn't in danger right in front of them. Until, of course, Halima jumped over the counter to try to get some kind of safety. Then they yelled at her and told her to leave. Halima was devastated and saddened by the employees' lack of empathy and willingness to help, but that's just how the bystander effect works. The examples of the bystander effect we've seen so far result in many people doing nothing. However, the theory also says that if one person steps in, more people are likely to help. This clip from The Sun UK clearly illustrates the more positive side of the bystander effect. In it, we see a man berating a woman on a train as the passengers around them do their best to ignore them.
Oh, I'm such a horrible man because I said I was smacking your mouth. No slide. Don't start me, I'm not you know. Shut the
Their faces are blurred, but you can hear the anger in their voices. The verbal abuse gets more intense until the man actually moves in to physically attack the woman he's been yelling at. When he begins to move toward her, we can see 2 men stand up immediately to stop him, followed by several others. The rest of the video is obscured, but it's obvious that the attacker is being overpowered by at least 5 other men. When those 2 men got up to stop the attack from happening, they made it safe and acceptable for others to help in accordance with the bystander effect. December 2019. It seems the bystander effect also works in cases of harassment. Take this clip for instance. Reporter Alex Bazarjan is covering a race on a bridge in Atlanta, Georgia as runners pass by her. As her report goes on, the runners begin to goof off for the camera by waving, pretending to be an airplane, and other silly antics. However, one runner takes things too far.
Whoa! Not expecting that. Exciting. It's very exciting. People.
As a man in a hat and sunglasses runs past, you can see Alex's whole demeanor change. Later on, we found out that the man smacked her backside as he ran past. There were definitely enough people running behind him who saw the event transpire, but nobody stepped in to bring him to justice or even call him out on his deed. Alex called the man out on Twitter, and internet users identified the man as Tommy Calloway, a 43-year-old teen youth minister and Boy Scout leader. Apparently, he never learned anything from the Bible or Boy Scouts about respecting other people's space. March 2019. The close quarters of public transit seem to be a breeding ground for the bystander effect. In this next clip, we have another clip from a subway train in New York City. In it, you can see a man literally stomping out a 78-year-old woman in her seat. While he carries out the violent, cruel act with no less than 6 kicks, with 2 of them going directly to her head. The person recording does nothing, and you can hear several people behind the camera reacting to what they are seeing in front of them. They also do nothing as the attacker exits the train freely. The senior citizen was treated for minor cuts and bruises, and the attacker, Mark Gomez, was eventually apprehended by police. This next clip comes from a London train, where a Muslim man was carrying out his morning prayers. An Englishman sitting across from him begins to berate him for following his faith, saying that this is a Christian country, and telling him he doesn't have any respect for doing the things she just did in a public place.
Let me tell you something, this is a Christian country. You behave in our manners and the way that we do things. You're not going to do it on public transport where I'm sitting.
Okay.
You do not even have the decency to ask me if you can do it.
I don't need your permission.
Yeah, you need my permission to invite my privacy in my space.
You are over there, I'm over here.
Yeah, but your noise that you make travels.
If you have an issue,
I do have an issue with it.
Move along.
I do have an issue with it.
Move
Do you see
along.
anybody of any other faith sitting here doing their morning prayers?
I don't care if
No,
they-
you know why? Because they respect other people.
Stop shouting.
And that's your problem.
Stop
You've got
shouting.
no respect for other people. I'm telling you, what you are doing is invading other people's space.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you are.
No one's having a problem
Yes,
with
you
it.
are.
All right.
Nobody wants to tell you to stop because they are too careful. Because oh my
Don't
God,
talk
don't
about-
touch a
talk-
Muslim.
This video only shows this one man and a reflection of another in the glass behind him, but the person taking the video references more people on the train. Everyone continues to mind their own business. Again, this might be a side effect of public transit, and there was no physical altercation involved, but somebody might have spoken up in the man's defense if it weren't for the bystander effect. A busy subway platform in New York City doesn't seem like the best place to carry out a vicious attack, but the great number of people present usually means no one will do anything thanks to the bystander effect. Thankfully, a brave man named Sean Conaboy was there on the day someone tried to stab a random woman. You can see him dive into the attacker to pull him off as bystanders on the platform stand around either in shock or fear. As Sean struggles with the attacker, several other people step in to restrain him. All it takes is one good person to step in and do something to break the bystander effect spell. A random train passenger records a suspicious man in the following bystander effect. A man dressed head to toe in red, not a color usually associated with keeping a low profile, tries to speak to a woman who appears to be sleeping. When the train stops, the man picks her up and takes her out of the train in a sudden, shocking attempt at kidnapping. Thankfully, the woman comes to her senses and gets back on the train before the doors close. Once she's already back on the train safely, then other passengers get up to get involved. Once the emergency had passed, the bystander effect no longer applied. The wannabe kidnapper was Sonny Alloway, who was later apprehended and charged with unlawful imprisonment. Two women are out for a walk with a toddler in the Arden Arcade area of Sacramento, California, when suddenly, another woman approaches them. She says the toddler is her baby and attempts to take it from them. The women run away as they're chased by an unhinged woman, but thankfully a man was in the right place at the right time to protect the child. This security camera footage shows only a small portion of the event, but it's another interesting illustration of the bystander effect. Since there was no one else nearby to help, the man didn't waste any time jumping in to offer aid. If there had been more people in the area, this might have been a very different story. The two women and their toddler are okay, and the pursuer, Deidre Gentry, was arrested and charged with attempted kidnapping. If you think Walmart employees' jobs are hard, just wait until you see this next clip. In it, we see a man who is clearly experiencing the effects of one or several kinds of drugs as he makes his way up and down the aisles of a Walmart store. He destroys displays, eats produce, and pours things on his body.
No, I can't.
Just don't touch it. Don't see it's coming. You know they don't come.
Yeah, man. Oh, yeah, man. Yeah,
Hey, leave him alone. Go. Keep going. Keep going.
The entire time, he crosses paths with other Walmart employees and customers who are happy to keep their distance from him. Except for this guy, who thinks shoving his shoulder accomplishes anything at all. It's important to note again that people who are under the influence of hard drugs are impossible to predict and can be extremely dangerous, so it's never a good idea to interact with them unless it's in defense of yourself or another person. However, it's another interesting example of the bystander effect in action. An entire store full of people couldn't stop this one person from slathering his entire body with yogurt.